If you're watching this video and expecting a restoration, it's more of a transformation than anything. You see, this piece sat in the thrift store for over 7 months and was about to end up being cleared out of the store. I passed this piece up many times because it was in decent shape for its age, and I figured someone would find it. I guess it ended up being me after all. The finish on this piece is a very thick and almost paint-like white lacquer, also referred to as a blonde finish. While you can see the wood grain on most of these pieces, it's often obscured by the finish. Based on the grain pattern on the piece, I believe it's mahogany under the finish, so I want to do my best to magnify the veneer under the finish. As I prep the piece, I noticed that there aren't any dovetails on the sides of the drawers, so let's take a closer look. Dovetailing is often called out as a sign of good construction, but a quick look at the store and this piece doesn't appear to have any. These drawers are solid though. There are no loose joints to be found. You can also tell by the groove on the side of the drawers that there are different layers of wood. There's a veneer on the front and back of the solid wood boards that are joined together for the front of the drawer. Flipping the drawer over, you can see that there's a sliding dovetail joint holding the sides to the front. There are also standard dovetail joints on the back of the drawers. This would explain why the drawers are so sturdy. Finish removal on blonde lacquer pieces can be rather difficult in my experience. If you sand them down, you can easily sand right through the veneer that's underneath it. For that reason, I'm going to start off using a vintage finish remover called QCS on the piece. You spray the area down you wish to remove the finish from, let it sit for 15 minutes, reapply a second coat, and test the finish to see if it's ready for removal. The finish on the piece was rather interesting. The top of the dresser seemed to have more sealer applied to it, and it took more applications to remove the finish, but the drawers and sides were a lot easier to remove the finish from. I ended up sanding the top down after removing the finish off of the drawers. I did another round of QCS finish remover to gently scrub the remaining finish from the mahogany wood grain. If you attempt to sand this down to remove the remaining finish from the wood pores, you're likely going to sand right through the veneer, which is why I choose to use a stripper and a soft wire brush to remove the finish instead. It was a challenge for me to decide what I wanted to do with the smaller side drawers on the left and right. There are 2 different handle styles on the drawers, and I wanted them to be all the same. Before I could even start the process of putting the same style handles on, I wanted to remove the aluminum inlay on the front of the bottom drawers. And since we're in the process of modifying the dresser, I am also going to remove the base, which is not very popular right now, and replace it with some furniture legs. To cut the sides of the dresser, I'm going to try out these laminated jigsaw blades, and I'll link those below in the description. These were recommended to me by a commenter on one of my other videos who noted that they are better for preventing tear out. I can confirm this cut was much better than my other blades that I was using, and the amount of tear out that did occur can easily be rounded off and sanded down. The legs I'm planning on using for this piece need a place to attach to. I used some scrap wood for this, and I marked 4 places to drill in pocket holes to attach the wood to the dresser frame. Once the pocket holes were drilled, I glued and screwed the wood to the frame. I'm going to wait to attach the legs until the end to prevent the finish that I plan on using from getting on them. Next, I'm going to plug the drawer pull holes on the front of the small dresser drawers. I'm using dowels for this, and since I plan on putting new handles in, I want them to be single hole pulls, which means these need to be filled. You could use something like wood filler for this, but I prefer to use dowels when possible. Before I got to this point, I was on the fence on whether I wanted to keep the aluminum inlays on the front. I decided not to, and to fill that space where the inlays were, I used DAP plastic wood filler. It was my first time using DAP plastic wood filler, and the texture was actually really smooth, almost like peanut butter. Unlike some other wood fillers that I've used, which are really grainy, this actually made it easier to fill in the narrow spaces. I used my pull saw to trim down the dowels flush with the drawer fronts after the wood glue had dried. However, a flush cut saw is better for this application, and I'll link one in the description below. The color of the dresser varied on the sides and the top, and for that reason I decided to use stain to make everything look more uniform. I wasn't sure about what color to select, so I swatched colors on one of the drawer fronts to see which one would look better. I ended up going with a brown mahogany color. If you are wondering why I would stain a drawer front to swatch, it's because I'm going to completely re-veneer the side drawers. I purchased 2 matching pieces of veneer to use for this, and the stain color looked nice with the darker tones of the new veneer. To prepare the drawers for the new veneer, I'm going to apply a coat of shellac to seal the open wood pores. This will also help give me a smoother substrate to bond the veneer with. While the shellac is drying, I'm going to apply the stain to the piece. The top is a very large surface area to work with, so I'm working pretty quickly to cover the area before wiping it down. If for whatever reason you're using gel stain and it begins to dry when you apply it, you can apply it to the entire work surface and then wipe down what you can with a shop cloth, and then just come back with some mineral spirits on a shop cloth and wipe it down to remove any remaining streaks. I noticed some areas where the color didn't look even or even splotchy, so I'm going to apply shellac to the dresser after the stain has dried to see where I need to apply some toner. I selected medium walnut toner for this. If you're not sure which toner to use, you can always spray it on a test swatch on some scrap wood to give you a better idea what the color will look like. I want the veneer to mirror the wood grains on the left and right side of the drawers, so I'm lining them up on top of one another to cut them into sections that will fit oversized on the drawer faces. You want extra veneer to work with in case your positioning is a bit off. Trying to fit an exact sized cut of veneer is a lot more difficult than just trimming the excess. To apply the veneer to the drawer faces, I'm using contact cement, which is an instant and permanent bond. It is flammable, so make sure that you're working in a well-ventilated area. I'm using a chip brush to cover both the back of the veneer and the drawer faces with contact cement. I apply one coat, let it dry, and then I apply a second coat and let it dry. Once the contact cement is dry on both surfaces, that's when you carefully apply the veneer to the drawer faces. If you're working with a large work surface, you can use dowels between the surfaces until you're ready to attach the veneer. I use my hand to apply light pressure to the veneer once it's in place, and then I come back and I apply more pressure using a J roller. You can use a rounded piece of wood for this as well, but the goal should be to apply 75 pounds of pressure to get a good bond between the surfaces. Since there is excess veneer on the outside of the drawer faces, be careful not to push off the sides too much when applying pressure, because you can crack the veneer and tear the ends of the wood grain on the drawer faces. Gently sanding the edges of the veneer will give you a nice, flush surface. If you have any slight gaps between the veneer on the surface, you can use a rounded metal edge, like a screwdriver, to push those ends down and close the gap. This typically happens when the edges of the original drawer faces were slightly rounded. I had originally envisioned using black stain on the dresser frame to create contrast with the mahogany. When I was initially removing the finish, though, I noticed that the wood species were not the same. The outside is very green, which means it's poplar, and the inner frame appears to be ash. I had quite a bit of time to think about this from the initial discovery, and rather than stain these black, I decided to paint this area black. 2 reasons. First reason being that paint is easier to remove than stain, so if someone decided to change the finish on the dresser, they aren't having to sand into the rounded edge to remove the stain. The second reason is this is an easy way to create a consistent color on the piece, without being concerned with differentiation of black tones on the different wood species. I sealed everything with deft, clear satin lacquer finish. Throughout this furniture makeover, I thought a lot about how I wanted to make this dresser easier to change in the future if someone decided to give it a makeover again. One of the things that I decided to change on the piece was the hardware, but the original hardware pulls were different sizes. For that reason, I chose to use single screw pulls as their replacement since they are easy to find and someone could easily swap them out with something else if they got tired of the existing hardware. The same thought was put into the legs on the dresser. The legs can be swapped out with other legs if someone wanted to change the look, since there's the new brace that's there. Cleaning furniture can be such a chore. Watching it may even be a bore, but if you're selling furniture for a profit, it can help you sell it for more. Taking a few extra minutes out of your day can make your wallet say, "Yay!" I hope you enjoyed this furniture transformation. If you'd like to see other transformations, make sure that you subscribe to my channel and boop the like button. Thanks for watching.